First of all, so the editor doesn't make any mistakes, tell us what your name is, spell it, and what your job is.
Johnny Capps, Johny, Capps, Capps, and I am the producer of Merlin alongside Julian Murphy, and also one of the co-creators of the show.
I want to go on to the cast now. Talk about the character and who plays the part. Talk about Merlin for me.
Well, Merlin, I mean, Merlin was a really challenging part to cast because you're, to start off with, in a high concept show, you've got to get a certain type of actor. And there are lots of actors that can be naturalistic and just be themselves. But what you need in a high concept show is somebody that can take lines and just spin them just a little bit, give a little twinkle to the eye. And American actors are always phenomenally brilliant at high concept shows. If you look at Buffy and Angel and Smallville, they know how to deal with a world where extraordinary things are happening, but talk about it though it's just natural. And that's a real kind of acting talent, which a lot of British actors come up through being very naturalistic, and they find it very difficult to talk about Valiant's magic shield, the snakes are coming out. You know, and if you deliver that in a kind of naturalistic method acting way, it is ridiculous. So you need to find an actor that can find an acting style that fits within the world of the show. And so the challenge for Merlin was that this actor had to do so many things. He had to be charming, he had to be funny, he had to be warm, you had to really, really like him. But then he had to have a quality which was slightly, not otherworldly, but you had to think, I believe that one day he will be Merlin. So, I mean, you've got all of these sort of ludicrous sort of things that these poor young actors coming in have got to hit. And it was a very, very long process because basically what we do, I mean, Julian and I audition young actors all the time because a lot of our shows have young casts, so we kind of know what works and what doesn't work in auditions for young actors. And you have to kind of meet them again and again and again because they come in these sort of completely nervous states, sort of quaking with their cappuccinos. And you have to sort of like relax them and just see their potential. And even if the audition isn't great, but I'll say to Julian, he had something. There was just something, you know, the way he walked into the room, the way he just said that one line, there was that great vulnerability which Merlin should have. So we just kept on recalling and recalling and recalling. I mean, poor old Colin was recalled and recalled and recalled. And he just had a certain quality. He just had, there was just something about the way he performed it where he had a vulnerability and he had great humour. And I think that was the other thing, is that you want, with all of the actors in this show, you want them to have humour. So it was quite a long process, but I think, you know, it was absolutely well worth it because there hasn't been one day where I thought, oh, you know, maybe we should have gone for somebody else. I mean, Colin has just gone from strength to strength to strength and just grown in this part. It's been really fascinating to watch, actually.
And well, Arthur and Bradley now, we were at the beginning of the programme. Arthur's not the most pleasant of people.
Yeah.
But we've got to grow to like him. So what do you look for in casting that, and why did you choose Bradley?
Well, I think that the casting of Arthur, again, was difficult because what you want is an actor that can go on the sort of the 5-year plan of Merlin, that he will start off as this slightly gauche sort of idiotic, selfish, self-centered prince, but that there has to be the potential of King Arthur, the king of legend. So you needed to find an actor who was heroic, that was good at action, and believe me, there are so few actors that are good at action, it's quite depressing. And at the same time, find somebody that has a real comic ability. And I'd worked with Bradley last year on a show called Disconnected for the BBC, and he played a sort of, the college jock. He was a bit of an idiot, sort of a bit like American Pie type character. And he had a real understanding of comedy. And it was always in my back of my mind, I was thinking he has got the right kind of understanding of comedy to play Arthur very, very well. And so we brought him in for lots of auditions just to see whether he could get the weight of Arthur as well. And he absolutely proved that he could do that. So, you know, we really pushed him with the BBC and we got him into the show. And I'm really pleased with the way he, again, has grown as well, because he's got the great kind of selfish Arthur to begin with. But as Bradley has grown in confidence, he has found the other Arthur as well. So these great moments where you suddenly in a scene you go, God, that really is, you know, Arthur, you know, future King of England. And then obviously we always undercut that in the script and he goes back to being a total idiot.
with those boys being led up by the executioner, and then track up with them, land on to. There we go. Isn't it?
It is.
Tell me about the scene today, guys. What's happening?
Colin, while I chew my biscuit, tell us about the scene.
Two guys are being executed for harbouring a sorcerer, but I don't agree with it. I think Uther's overreacting, but Arthur's just having to take his orders, I guess.
And I'm just doing what Uther tells me.
But you never agree with him.
No, I don't. I mean, I'll defend the magical realm till the end.
How do you put up with him, Arthur? That's the big thing. You've got this guy all niggling you all the time. How do you put up with him?
How do I put up with it?
Yeah.
I don't. I just tell him to go and do something because he's incredibly annoying most of the time, and it's just best to get him to, go away somewhere, and make himself busy.
Do you think you make a better stab at being king
We
than
have you
get an
both in
apple?
then, please,
I might
guys.
take an apple instead.
What? Yeah, go for it.
That's alright.
We
Thank
sign
you
you
very
up, please, guys. Thank you.
Do you think you make a better fist at being king than Arthur does?
Me?
Yeah.
No. No chance. Could never do that. Maybe one day. They're to be executed
Yes, Merlin.
by order of the king.
They committed a very serious crime.
Giving a man a bed for the night.
Not a man, a sorcerer.
Maybe they didn't know that.
It is not for you to question my father's actions. Is that understood?
Yes, sire.
Uther, describe what kind of character Uther is, and then Anthony Head's brilliant casting for it, but probably not the kind of person you'd have thought of straight away, because Uther's quite a very despotic sort of leader, really.
I think Uther is a really hard part because basically Uther, certainly in the first season, is the threat. He is the man that has banished magic and does not tolerate it. And that provides our real threat to Merlin throughout season 1.
This kingdom was mired in chaos. But with the people's help, magic was driven from the realm. So I declare a festival to celebrate 20 years since the great dragon was captured and Camelot freed from the evil of sorcery.
So we needed to find an actor that could play that, have that authority, but at the same time, as the series progresses, we learn that Uther has personal reasons for banning magic, and actually he's a very, very vulnerable man. So we needed an actor then to be able to find that as well. And I think what and my real worry with Uther is that he would turn into this kind of Queen of Hearts, just sort of off with his head, kill him, and it would always just be one note. So it was I always wanted to find an actor that would be able to find light and shade in that, and to sort of begin subtextually to give away this emotional story. And when Anthony was available, I got unbelievably excited because I love Buffy, so I'd watched every episode of Buffy. So to have the fact that I was sending the script to Anthony Head, I was like, go to my friends, I'm sending a script to Anthony Head. Can you believe it? And I didn't think that he would. I really wasn't sure whether he would take the part. And then when he turned back and said he's really interested, I was just sort of beside myself with excitement. And then at the first read-through, it was just really. What was so exciting was that I kind of knew what he would do, but actually he did much more than that, which was so exciting. And he's found this great kind of subtlety. And as Uther has developed, we've found a much more interesting contradictions of his character, which has been great because it's always good when you find an actor that's absolutely lives in the heart of the character, so you can always storyline more and more and more. And with Anthony, what we've been able to do is to say, well, we can, let's have this, the idea we've got with him and Morgana, we can really go for that now, and let's do it even bigger. So that's been really exciting.
You've also cast the archetypal grumpy old man as Gaius, who isn't really a grumpy old man, he's a mentor.
Yes. Well, Richard Wilson, Gaius is such an important part of the show. And again, you wanted an actor that had a real breadth of a really big playing range. And I was always a huge fan of Richard Wilson. I thought that One Foot in the Grave was absolute genius because it wasn't just sitcom acting. Victor Meldrew was a person that everybody related to, and and I'd seen him in other things as well, and I knew that he was a really, really good actor. And we offered him the part, not thinking that he would take it again. But he read the scripts and liked it and said yes. So it was another kind of moment of, this is a dream come true. Because I think that Richard as an actor has this huge warmth, which is very, very different to what you've seen in other parts that he's played. And so you see Richard Wilson smiling and being this fantastic father figure, and an unlikely father figure, because Gaius in his life has never ever dreamt of being a father, and suddenly he's having to nurture this young wizard. And Richard Wilson finds all these wonderful moments of being very angry and then just finding complete vulnerability, sort of almost going, I don't know how to do this. And he finds all this light and shade in the part, which is really thrilling to watch. And also the humour is great because him and Colin get on brilliantly as actors. There's a real spark between them. So you can now write dialogue and really play on that odd couple relationship. And as the series has progressed, they have this great kind of comic double act, which just, again, adds another element to the show.
Yes, is it sort of... are you reducing the risk enormously by you've got two very young, inexperienced actors against two really experienced actors? Does that reduce your risk, and are they learning something from each other in the process?
Well, I mean, I think that it does reduce your risk, but I mean, Julian and I have cast shows with people with very little experience, and they've worked. I think that it's a gut feeling of whether or not you think the actor can do it, and you just get more and more experience the more shows you cast. I think definitely the great thing about Merlin is you have these 6 main characters. They're all very, very different, and so they'll appeal to different people. And I think that having two great actors who are very experienced and are unbelievably professional, they set this amazing standard on set. And so I think that Angel and Katie and Colin and Bradley have all really learned from that, and they're getting a great sort of apprenticeship really in watching the way these two great actors work. And I think that it's interesting to see how the 4 young actors have grown in confidence and the way they understand how a camera works and how subtle you can be. All of these things, they've gone on this amazing steep learning curve. And I think that, the springboard to that really was Richard and Anthony in lots of ways.
Excellent. Tell me about Gwen.
Well, Gwen was, when we were playing around with the format idea, we were going, well, why don't we have young Guinevere? You've got to have young Guinevere. And then we said, well, let's make her a serving girl. Why don't we sort of basically say that the future King of England doesn't marry royalty, he follows his heart and he marries, a beautiful young serving girl. And also it seemed like a good idea because then Gwen could be... we follow her journey. She's got this amazing character arc because how does she from a lowly servant girl to Morgana become the great queen of legend? So that suddenly gave us lots and lots of story to play around with, and we thought that was interesting. I mean, we did kind of go quite crazy at the beginning and go, well, let's make her like Ugly Betty and give her medieval braces and thick glasses, and then she can slowly transform and be beautiful. And then we suddenly realised that was a really bad idea. Yeah.
You were pretty much of a coup with the actor you got to play Lancelot too, I think.
Yes, I mean that was fantastic because we were kind of going, who the hell do we cast as Lancelot? Because you've got to have somebody who's gorgeous, who's good at action, that has that an audience will recognise, and you don't want to do sort of cheesy casting where you just cast a well-known face. We wanted somebody that had a good playing range, and our casting director said, well, what about Santiago? And I was like going, he won't do it. And just at the same time, I think the NBC sale had just come through. So we sent him the script, and it was another moment where I had to eat my words because he said yes, he'd do it. So, we were all very excited, and the makeup department were particularly excited to be meeting Santiago and spending lots of time with him first thing in the morning.
What, the men or the girls?
Well, whatever. I think generally he was nicknamed Sir Four a lot.
We haven't talked about Morgana yet. In later life, she becomes a pretty evil bitch, but there's not much sign of that in what we saw, because she's a lovely girl.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that with Morgana, the whole show is about very slowly burning story. So Morgana in the first series is somebody that you empathise with. She is somebody that thinks that Uther, even though, you know, he is her adopted father, she thinks that he's cruel, and she empathises with magic. So we've just started her journey off by saying that she is a sympathiser to magic. I mean, she stands up to Uther. She doesn't necessarily in season 1 do things that are very wrong. But it's the beginning of the journey, because for me, what's fascinating about Morgana is the name. We know that ultimately she is complicit in Arthur's downfall. And so to mark that moment when she decides to be that person is sort of a fascinating point to work towards. And so we fully intend to really play around with how her character changes, that she will be this person that you should fall in love with and care for and like, and think, yeah, actually, what's wrong with having magic? In lots of ways, she's a humanitarian. And I think that, at the point when you like her the most, she does something quite evil, and then we're shocked by that. But I think the interesting thing will be is to see how much the audience are shocked by her when she changes and becomes evil Morgana.
Can you tell me just briefly about a couple of the other guest stars you've had? Because we haven't actually been able to interview them, but it's quite likely they might show clips of Gwen and people. Sorry, not...
Eve Miles.
Eve, yeah, Eve.
Yeah.
Just talk briefly about a couple of the ones you can remember. They may just be able to, because nobody else has been able to talk about them.
I mean, it was great casting Eve Miles as Lady Helen and Mary Collins. She's been in Torchwood, so I was very much aware of her work, and I've actually auditioned her loads of other times for stuff, and so I've always liked her. And the great thing about her is she's got a massive playing range, so we knew that she'd be able to play the old crone Mary Collins, but at the same time be evil, or witchy poo as the new term we use on Merlin, that she could be a real kind of witchy poo character but bring it hard. So in that big courtyard scene when she says, "You killed my son," we said, we don't want you to give us full witchy poo at this moment. We want to see a mother's love for her son. And she did it beautifully, and she with all these prosthetics on, she started crying and did this speech, and all the French extras after the take just all simultaneously just gave this massive applause. It was just the most amazing moment. And then when she plays Lady Helen, she has this kind of regal sexuality, but gets a bit of evilness in there as well. So she was great, and really because she's worked in high concept shows, she knows how you can just push the acting a little bit further and just take it right to that edge of believability and epic kind of keeping it big. And she always made the right decisions, and she and loved every minute of it. The prosthetics, she had to sit in prosthetics for like 6-7 hours, getting up early in the morning, and she always had a great sense of humour about the whole thing, and did a terrific job.
Any more guest stars to tell me about?
We have Julian Rhind-Tutt, who plays a very evil doctor that comes and sort of basically gives old Gaius the elbow. And Julian Rhind-Tutt had to wear quite a complicated face prosthetic because the character Edwin has a burn across half of his face. So I think it was quite a difficult shoot for him because he was having that applied every day. But he's terrific. He brought a real kind of Uriah Heep kind of characterization to Edwin, who is this sort of cloaked, slightly creepy physician in the court, and he played terrifically against Richard Wilson. It's a really big episode for Gaius, where we discover a bit more about Gaius's past and how he and his relationship with Uther and how they became friends. So it's interesting from that. And the great thing about Julian Rhind-Tutt is he's a fantastic actor. I've worked with him before, actually. He played another psycho for me. I always seem to kind of call him when I need a psycho. Julian, hi, I need a psycho. Could you come? Are you free? And he basically, he's great at playing these sort of dark characters, but he's got a lot of comedy work. He's done a lot of comedy, so he found these great moments of comedy as well as being kind of quite scary. So he was terrific.
So let's talk about Michelle.
So Michelle Ryan plays the part of Nimue, which is quite difficult to pronounce and almost impossible to spell. She is basically the nemesis of season 1. She's sort of uber witchy poo, as we call her. But she's basically the sorceress who is very much linked into the whole journey of Arthur, how Arthur was born, her relationship with Uther. So she's intrinsically linked into a lot of the character arcs. So as the series develops, we learn more and more about Nimue and why she's evil and why she hates Uther so much. And it was an interesting part to cast because we didn't want a kind of craggy old witch with a big nose and a huge wart. We wanted somebody that was young and sexy and charismatic, and Michelle Ryan we knew was available, and so we offered her the part, and I think that she really responded to the scripts and was very excited by it. And we met her and we had a chat with her about the part, and she sort of loved the idea, and we got going. And then she was great in the first few episodes, so we kept on saying, well, we can bring her back and we can do this, and that idea we had, well, I think that will really work now. So again, we were blessed with a really good actor that was allowed us to then do more of the storylining that we wanted, and so she keeps popping up and wreaking havoc in Camelot, very successfully and very sexily.
We managed to grab a couple of words with Ken Cranham when we were on the set, so maybe you could talk about Ken for me.
Yeah, Kenneth Cranham plays Ulfuric, who is a member of the She, who are basically quite evil fairies, but they're fairies in the kind of pixie type of fairy. And he comes to Camelot wanting to kill King Arthur. And Kenneth is a fantastic British actor. I've always been a huge fan of his work. I've seen a lot of his theatre stuff, and it was, he was our ideal piece of casting, and but it wasn't like a huge part, but it had some great moments. So I was really hoping that he would sort of read the script and see the potential of the part, because there's some great action sequences where he zaps people with his magical staff. And so I was thinking, I think he'll get it, and I think he'll enjoy it. And he was great fun on set. And I think he enjoyed his powerful staff.